All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to crack open a mystery that's literally 2,000 years old. We're talking about a Roman supermaterial, one that actually gets stronger over time and, get this, can heal itself. Now, this isn't just some dusty old history lesson. Nope, this is technology that could completely change how we build our modern world.
I mean, just take a look at this. The stuff we built today, the concrete that makes up our cities, it's designed to last, 50, maybe 100 years, and then it starts to fall apart. But then you look at Roman structures, like the Pantheon, or their ancient seawalls, and they've been standing for over 2,000 years. They've survived earthquakes, constant waves, you name it.
So that just begs the question, right? How on earth did they do it? What was their secret? For centuries, that recipe was just gone, lost to history. But now, thanks to modern science, we're finally starting to piece it all together, and it's turning out to be one of the greatest engineering feats of all time.
All right, let's get into it. And to really get why the Roman stuff is so special, we first need to talk about the huge hidden flaw in the concrete we use today.
Okay, so pretty much all of our modern buildings are built around a skeleton of steel bars, right? Rebar. And that rebar gives it strength, helps it resist being pulled apart. But, and this is a big but, this team-up of steel and concrete has a fatal flaw. See, concrete's kind of like a sponge. Water eventually seeps in, gets to the steel, and what happens when steel gets wet? It rusts. And when it rusts, it expands. A lot. It basically pushes the concrete apart from the inside out. So the very thing we put in there to make it strong ends up destroying it.
The Romans, though, they didn't need a steel skeleton. Nope, they perfected a recipe that honestly seems like magic to us. But when the Roman Empire fell, that knowledge, it just disappeared for almost 1,500 years.
So their concrete, which they called opus caementitium, had four main ingredients. You've got lime, that's the glue holding it together, water, obviously to kick off the reaction, then caementa, which is really just rubble and rocks to give it some bulk. But the real game changer, the secret sauce, was an ingredient called pozzolana, and it's a special type of volcanic ash.
And this map, wow, it really shows you just how important this ash was to them. The best stuff, the really good pozzolana, came from just one place, the Bay of Naples. So what did the Romans do? They set up this huge shipping operation to send it thousands of kilometers away, all across the Mediterranean. I mean, you just don't do that unless that one ingredient is absolutely 100% essential. Okay, so the ingredients were key, but that's only part of the story. The real genius here, the thing that is just mind-blowing, is how their concrete didn't just fight against the environment. It actually used the environment to make itself stronger.
Think about it. For any modern building near the ocean, like a pier or a seawall, salt water is its worst enemy. It's super corrosive, it speeds up that rusting process we talked about, and it just eats away at structures until they crumble.
But for the Romans' harbors, that exact same salt water, the stuff that destroys our concrete, was the secret ingredient to their lasting power. It was the very thing that made them stronger and stronger over time. It's the complete opposite of everything we know about modern engineering.
And you know what's crazy? This isn't something we just figured out. A Roman author, Pliny the Elder, wrote about this almost 2,000 years ago. He said the harbor walls became a single stone mass, every day stronger. He had no idea about the chemistry, of course, but he saw what was happening, and now our science is proving he was spot on.
So how in the world did that work? Well, as seawater trickled into the concrete, it reacted with that special volcanic ash. And that reaction started growing these rare, super strong crystals. These crystals would fill in all the tiny gaps and cracks, basically knitting the whole thing together from the inside. It's like it was constantly reinforcing itself.
That whole seawater thing is already pretty amazing, right? But believe it or not, that wasn't even the biggest secret. The most incredible discovery of all showed that the Romans had literally engineered their concrete with a hidden superpower. It could heal itself. For years and years, scientists would look at samples of Roman concrete, and they'd see these little white bits, these chunks mixed in. And for the longest time, everyone just thought, oh, that's just sloppy work. They didn't mix it well enough. Turns out, they could not have been more wrong.
Then, a huge study from MIT in 2023 finally figured it out. Those white chunks, they're called lime clasts, and they weren't a mistake. Not at all. They were put there on purpose. The Romans used this technique called hot mixing, where they added a really reactive type of lime at high heat, and that left these little pockets of calcium just sitting there, waiting.
So these lime clasts, they're basically a built-in repair kit,
Or think of it like an immune system for the concrete, just lying dormant, waiting for something to go wrong. When you look at them under a microscope, you can see these little reactive pockets, and how they work is just pure genius.
Okay, so here's the magic. A tiny crack forms. Water gets in, which always happens, but when that water reaches one of these lime clasts, it activates it. The lime dissolves, flows into the crack, and then rehardens, sealing the crack completely. It's amazing. A crack that would spell doom for our concrete was actually the trigger for the Roman concrete to repair itself. Just brilliant. So, what does all this mean for us today? This isn't just a cool history fact. This could actually be a blueprint for solving some of our biggest problems right now.
Let this number sink in for a second. 8%. That's the share of all global CO2 emissions that comes from making modern cement. To put that in perspective, if the cement industry was its own country, it would be the third biggest polluter in the world, right behind China and the US. That's massive.
But if we can actually reverse engineer what the Romans were doing, the payoff could be huge. We could be building things that last for centuries, not just a few decades. That hot mixing method the Romans used, it actually needs less heat than our methods, which means a smaller carbon footprint. And of course, with self-healing concrete, think of all the money and materials we'd save on repairs and replacements.
And all this leaves us with a pretty fascinating question, doesn't it? As we're trying to figure out how to build a better, more sustainable future, maybe the best place to look for answers isn't forward, but back. 2,000 years into the past, to the incredible, enduring genius of the Romans.